I was hired to clean out an apartment belonging to a man named Luke Barrett, who died 6 months ago. His sister Dana met me outside the building with a ring of keys and the expression of someone who'd had too many sleepless nights. He lived alone, she told me. He didn't have friends. He didn't let people in. Just be prepared for things to be a little strange. Strange was an understatement. The moment I unlocked the door, I felt like I'd walked into a museum exhibit. Everything inside was arranged with unsettling precision. Shoes lined up with ruler accuracy. Books organized not alphabetically, but by height and shade. Pillows centered to the millimeter. The TV remote sat perfectly parallel to the table's edge. Obsessive-compulsive is one thing. This felt like ritual. Dana lingered in the doorway, wringing her hands. He called it resetting the world, she said. Every night, before he went to bed, he put everything back exactly where it belonged. Exactly. And if anything was off, he couldn't sleep. Sometimes he'd stay up until morning fixing things. What happened after he died? I asked. Her eyes flicked to the apartment windows. It didn't stop. She handed me the key and left quickly, like she couldn't stand being too close to the place. I shrugged it off. Grief does weird things to people, and got to work. The job itself was simple. Pack everything into labeled boxes so Dana could donate or store it. Nothing dramatic. On day one, I boxed up the bookshelf. Every novel, every journal, every old manual. I stacked the labeled boxes in the hallway, locked up, and went home. The next morning, I opened the apartment door and felt my stomach drop. Every book was back on the shelves, perfectly aligned, exactly how they'd been before. The boxes were still in the hallway, taped shut. I checked the locks, checked for signs of forced entry, checked for any explanation that didn't make me feel insane. Nothing. Dana called right on time, voice soft and exhausted. Did the apartment undo your work? The fact she asked so casually made something tighten inside me. You've seen this happen before? I asked. At first, I thought someone was breaking in, she said. Then I stayed overnight. And it still reset itself. You saw it happen? No. A pause. That's the worst part. I never actually saw it. I'd blink or turn my head, and something would be back where it wasn't a second earlier. She lowered her voice. Luke always said the world should be correct. If something was out of place, it wasn't safe to sleep. I didn't believe her. I mean, I believed she believed it, but I didn't buy the supernatural part. People who lose someone sometimes cling to patterns, stories, symbolism, grief logic. Still, the books were back on the shelves somehow, so I tried again. The next night, I stayed late. Long after sunset, long after the hallway lights clicked to their dim nighttime mode. I boxed up the entire kitchen. Plates, cups, utensils, spices, everything. I stacked the boxes neatly in the middle of the room, stood back, and waited. Nothing happened. 10 minutes passed. 20. 30. I checked my phone. Midnight. Still nothing. I was packing up my things, muttering under my breath about being tired and gullible, when something cold slid down my spine. A sound. Not a loud one, not even unnatural. Just the faint clink of ceramic behind me. I turned. The plates were on the counter again, stacked, perfect, centered. My boxes hadn't moved. The tape wasn't peeled. Nothing had opened them. It was as if the plates had never been inside. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stepped closer to the counter, touched the top plate. Warm, like it had just been washed and dried. The apartment light flickered once. A quick, almost irritated blink. And the room shifted. Not physically, not visibly, just something in the air, like the walls inhaled. Then, from the bedroom, a soft thud, followed by another, a steady rhythm. I walked toward the sound, drawn by something I still can't explain. Inside the bedroom, every item I'd boxed earlier in the week, every book, every picture frame, every rolled-up shirt, sat out exactly where they'd originally been. The bed, neatly made. The alarm clock, blinking 12 o'clock, even though I hadn't touched it. And on the pillow, a slip of paper, handwritten, not old, not new, just placed. I picked it up. The handwriting was perfectly neat, almost too neat. Reset incomplete. Do not interfere. LB. My heartbeat staggered. LB. Luke Barrett, the dead man. I backed out of the room slowly, my breath trembling. The apartment didn't feel empty anymore. Not in a ghostly way, in a watched way. I grabbed my bag, shoved the bedroom door closed, and reached for the front doorknob. It turned before I touched it, slowly, deliberately. The door swung open on its own. Every light in the apartment flickered, and all around me, in the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, every object shifted half an inch into perfect alignment, a quiet, synchronized click, like the world settling into the shape someone else wanted. I stepped into the hallway, heart in my throat. But as the door closed behind me, I saw it. A second note sliding slowly under the bedroom door, as if pushed by an unseen hand. I bent down and picked it up. Another handwritten message, shorter, sharper, more urgent. You can't leave until it's reset correctly. The hallway went dark, and the apartment door unlocked behind me. Click. I backed away from the apartment door, the note still trembling in my hand. You can't leave until it's reset correctly. Every instinct screamed to run, take the stairwell, the elevator, a window, anything. But the second I took a step toward the hall, the overhead lights fizzled and died, plunging the corridor into a suffocating darkness. Behind me, the apartment door creaked open again. Not by wind, not by settling, by invitation. A slow, polite gesture, like someone pulling out a chair. I didn't want to go back inside. God, I didn't. But something whispered at the back of my mind, a sensation I couldn't shake. If I ran, it would follow. So I stepped inside. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the hallway light blinked faintly back to life, just enough to show me one thing. The door closed behind me and locked. The apartment looked different. Same objects, same arrangement, but the air felt wired, like I'd stepped into a machine that had just powered on. I walked carefully into the living room. Everything I'd boxed earlier in the week, Clothes, books, dishes was back in its original position. But now the arrangement wasn't just neat, it was too exact, too perfectly parallel. It looked less like someone cleaned and more like the world itself snapped into place. I whispered, "Luke, I don't know what you want from me." The lights buzzed, the ceiling fan spun a quarter turn by itself, and a framed photo on the wall rotated a fraction of an inch, aligning itself perfectly with the top edge of the picture next to it. Resetting the world. That's what his sister said he called it. Well, the world wasn't mine anymore. It was his. I walked to one of the boxes I'd sealed earlier, the one with the kitchen utensils, still taped, still untouched. I stared at it for a long moment before peeling the tape open. Inside, nothing, completely empty. But the tape wasn't torn. The cardboard wasn't damaged. The box hadn't been opened since I sealed it. I turned slowly, dread climbing my ribs like cold vines. Every fork, every cup, every spatula was not only back in the drawers, they were arranged in unnervingly exact patterns. Perfect gridding, perfect spacing. Like something was showing me it could do this all day. I reached for the slip of paper I'd found earlier and flipped it over, hoping for answers. Blank. But then, right as I watched, handwriting bled across the page. Not written, not appearing stroke by stroke. Just there. "You're interfering again." My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Then a second line appeared below it. "Reset the living room, or I will." I stared around the living room. Nothing looked wrong. Nothing looked out of place. But then I noticed it. One curtain on the far window was half an inch lower than the other. That was it. That tiny difference. The apartment didn't want it. When I lifted my hand to fix it, the room brightened slightly, as if the place itself exhaled, as if I'd pleased it. A chill rolled up my spine. This wasn't cleaning anymore. This was obedience. I fixed the curtain. The air lightened. Then, immediately, another object called out like a toothache in the corner of my vision. A crooked lamp. Straightened it. Then another, a coaster slightly off-center. Then another, a picture frame angled one degree wrong. Every time I fixed something, the apartment brightened, lights flickering with approval, shadows shrinking away. It was like feeding a hungry animal, one perfect gesture at a time. But after a while, I realized something. There was no end. No matter how much I straightened or aligned, there was always something left. Something else to adjust. Something else not quite correct. And every time I fixed one thing, the apartment would point out another. I whispered into the empty room. "This isn't cleaning. This is control." That's when the bedroom door slammed shut behind me so hard the walls shook. The slip of paper in my hand inked a new sentence. He tried defying the rules too. A second line followed. "You're already further in than he ever was." My mouth went dry. "What happened to him?" I whispered. The answer appeared slowly, as if the writer enjoyed taking their time. "He failed to reset in time." A pause. Then the ink curled into one final line, and the world reset him instead. The bedroom door clicked, unlocked itself, inviting me in. I stepped forward, pulse hammering at my throat. Inside the bedroom, the bed was made perfectly. Air still. Shadows still. Everything in flawless order. except for one thing. A new box. Not one I brought. Not one Dana provided. Plain cardboard, unmarked, sitting in the center of the bed. Inside was a single object. A watch. Old-fashioned, silver, still ticking, but the second hand wasn't moving forward. It was moving backward. Fast, jerky, panicked. Below the watch was another note. I picked it up with shaking fingers. Reset time. Then, smaller beneath it. Or you're next. Behind me, every light in the apartment flickered. Once, twice, 3 times, resetting. And when the final blink ended, the apartment door unlocked. And footsteps began walking toward the bedroom. They weren't mine, and they weren't human. The footsteps in the hallway were slow, steady, and unmistakably deliberate, like someone walking with absolute confidence toward a destination they'd been to 1,000 times. Except no one alive should know their way around this apartment like that. I backed up until I hit the dresser, gripping the ticking backward watch so tightly I could feel the metal bite into my palm. The second hand kept jerking counterclockwise, faster and faster, like time inside it was panicking. The footsteps got closer. Then they stopped right outside the bedroom door. I didn't breathe. The doorknob twisted. Not violently, not with force, with precision. A smooth, quiet turn, the exact kind of movement someone obsessed with perfect order would make. The door swung open, but the hallway was empty. No figure, no shadow, no person standing there. And yet, the floorboards outside the room slowly indented, as if weight was shifting onto them. Each step pressed down on wood that groaned under a presence I couldn't see. A shape was there, moving toward me, invisible, but pressing itself into reality one footprint at a time. I stepped backward toward the bed, trying to steady my breathing. The paper in my hand, the one that said reset time, fluttered as if caught in a small breeze. But the room was still. The footprints stopped 2 feet from me. Then something else changed. The entire apartment seemed to inhale. Lights dimmed, not flickering, but draining, like the room was pulling its power inward. The ceiling fan slowed, reversed direction, then sped up clockwise, mirroring the watch in my hand. Time wasn't flowing normally here. It wasn't flowing at all. The watch jerked violently, then stopped. Not at midnight, not at noon, at 2:11 a.m. A random, meaningless time, or maybe not meaningless at all. A new line bled onto the paper. This is when he died. I stared at it, throat tightening. Luke Barrett died at 2:11 a.m.? From what? Why did the apartment care? Before I could process it, more words surfaced. He didn't reset the world in time. You have 3 minutes. The lights stuttered. The room temperature dropped 5 degrees instantly. I whispered, 3 minutes to what? The answer formed with painful slowness, ink trembling. To fix what he couldn't. No details, no instructions, just a countdown. I checked the watch. It now read 2:12. 1 minute lost already. The invisible footsteps moved again, this time around me, circling the bed like something inspecting the space, judging my lack of action. Its presence pressed the air against my skin, cold and sharp. I stumbled into the living room, searching for something wrong, something out of place. A pillow crooked. I fixed it. The apartment brightened slightly. A blanket folded too loosely. I refolded it. Another faint glow. Then I noticed it. A book on the coffee table wasn't aligned with the grain of the wood. I adjusted it. The ceiling light buzzed in approval. The watch jumped to 2:13. 2 minutes left. I sprinted to the kitchen, scanning every surface. Plates aligned. Utensils perfect. Towels centered. Then the salt shaker was an inch too far left. I slid it into place. A soft clicking sound ran through the walls like bones settling. I checked the watch. 2:14. 1 minute. Only one. I turned toward the bedroom again and froze. Everything was wrong. The bed skewed, sheets rumpled, dresser slightly angled, lamp out of place. The apartment wasn't testing me anymore. It was sabotaging me. I lunged for the bed, straightened the sheets with shaking hands. The watch ticked louder. Backward, frantic. 30 seconds left. I aligned the dresser, realigned the lamp, fixed the curtain rods, centered the pillow. The apartment hummed with tension. The air vibrated. 20 seconds. I adjusted the rug, the bedside table, the drawer handle. 10 seconds. Then I saw it. The photograph of Luke on the wall. It wasn't straight. Possible, easy fix. But as I reached up to straighten it, something occurred to me. Every object in this apartment had been returned to its exact original position since the day I arrived. Except this one. This picture had been vertical last week. Now it was horizontal. It didn't belong that way. I rotated it upright. The apartment gave a deep, resonant exhale, like releasing months of tension in a single breath. The watch hit 2:15 a.m. Then it began ticking forward again. Slow. Normal. The air warmed. The lights steadied. The invisible footsteps stopped. Silence filled the room. I staggered back, panting, dizzy, trying to understand what I'd just done. Then the note in my hand changed again. Words crawled across it like veins spreading. Reset complete. Then, follow me. Before I could move, the apartment door unlocked by itself, and the lights began turning on, one by one, leading not out of the apartment, but deeper inside. The glow stopped at a small crawlspace door I hadn't noticed before. A door so perfectly hidden, its seam lined up with the wall molding, painted the same color. Literally invisible unless you were looking for deviations. A tiny metal latch clicked. The door opened. Inside was darkness and a staircase leading down. At the top step sat another slip of paper. I picked it up. It said only one thing. This is where he finished resetting the world. The crawl space door yawned open like a throat, stale air drifting up from the darkness below. The smell wasn't rot, not exactly. More like dust mixed with something metallic, faint but unmistakable. Old air, trapped air, air that hadn't been disturbed since the last person descended these steps. the last person being Luke Barrett. I stared down into the pitch-black stairwell, the narrow wooden steps, disappearing into a void that felt too deep for the structure of the building. No architectural blueprint in the world would have allowed a staircase this long in a third-floor apartment. The slip of paper in my hand crinkled. A new line appeared, written slowly, deliberately, as if the apartment wanted me to watch the ink form. "Don't take your eyes off the steps." A second line followed immediately. He stopped looking. The lights in the apartment flickered once, a warning, a countdown. I stepped onto the first stair. It groaned like something waking up. As I descended, the air grew colder, not gradually, in jerking drops, like walking through invisible pockets of freezer air. 10 steps down, 20, 30. No landing, no turn, no end in sight. Just an impossibly long, wooden throat stretching deeper and deeper beneath a building that should not have space for any of this. I kept my eyes on the steps, staring so hard my vision blurred. At step 40, something changed. A faint scraping sound echoed from below. Soft, steady, metal against concrete, like someone dragging something in slow circles. I gripped the wall with one hand and forced myself onward. Step 45, step 50. The scraping grew louder, clearer, rhythmic, deliberate. At step 56, the staircase finally opened into a vast room, not a basement, a chamber, large enough to swallow the entire building above it. My breath caught, because every wall, from floor to ceiling, was covered in shelves. Perfect, symmetrical shelves, filled with objects. Every object labeled. Every label handwritten in the same neat lettering as the notes. Thousands of items lined the walls. Shirts folded identically. Mugs spaced precisely 1 inch apart. Watches ticking in perfect unison. Books sorted by height and spine color. Pillows stacked like museum displays. Photos framed at identical angles. All impossibly clean. All arranged with the same obsessive, suffocating exactness. This was no basement. This was a replica of order. A cathedral of reset. And in the center of the room, a figure knelt on the concrete floor, back turned to me, clothes gray with dust, hair unkempt, hanging in clumps. A man-shaped silhouette, frozen, motionless, except his right hand dragged something across the floor, a steel tool, a straight edge. He was drawing lines, perfect geometric lines, resetting the world. "Luke," I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. The scraping stopped. Every watch on every shelf stopped ticking. All the air in the chamber pressed inward toward me, heavy and electric. Then the man's head turned, not fully, just enough for me to see the corner of his face. His jaw was slack. His eyes were open wide, far too wide. His pupils blown dark and unnatural, like no light had touched them in years. He looked at me as though I were an object out of place, something to correct. Slowly, too slowly, his shoulders twisted, joints stiff like rusted hinges. He rose to his feet with a jerking motion. In his left hand, he held a slip of paper. He let it fall to the ground without looking. I stepped closer, shaking, and picked it up. The handwriting was identical. Too identical. No human hand could write like this for years without variation. You finished what he couldn't. A second line. Now there must be a new resetter. My pulse hammered painfully. I stepped back. No, I'm not doing this. I'm not staying here. I'm not. Every shelf in the room shifted at once. Not loudly, but with a soft, synchronized scrape. Perfect alignment, adjusting, reacting, choosing. Then I saw it, a single empty space on the shelf nearest me. Perfectly rectangular, perfectly shaped, exactly sized for a watch. The backward ticking watch I still held in my hand. The one the apartment had given me. The one that now ticked forward, steady, patient, like it already knew its fate. Luke took one step toward me, his foot landing perfectly aligned with the tile lines. I stumbled backward toward the stairs, but the stairway entrance wasn't there anymore. The wall had smoothed over, becoming seamless. The room had reset without me. I slammed my hand against the wall, searching for a crack, a handle, anything. Nothing. Every shelf creaked softly, rearranging 1 millimeter at a time, turning toward me. The paper in my hand inked something new. Just 2 words. Your turn. Something shifted behind me. The shelves closest to the center began bending, not physically, but perceptually, like the room itself was steering me toward the empty slot. Luke raised his straight-edge tool, not to strike, to align. He lifted his other hand and pointed at the watch I held. The meaning hit me like ice water. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was trying to place me. I wasn't a person in this room. I was an object, out of place. I acted before I thought. I hurled the watch across the chamber. It clanged against a far shelf, and suddenly, every tick in the room resumed. A roaring, unstoppable cascade of clocks restarting, time returning. The chamber shuddered. The shelves snapped violently toward alignment, and the wall behind me opened, the staircase reappearing as if yanked back into existence. I bolted up the stairs 2 steps at a time, breath tearing through my lungs. Behind me, the room let out a thunderous, mechanical groan, like gears grinding through the earth. I didn't look back. I reached the apartment, burst through the crawl space door, and slammed it shut just as something heavy thudded against the wood from the other side. The apartment lights flickered wildly, then went dead. Silence. When I finally opened my eyes, a slip of paper lay at my feet. Unlike the others, this one was messy, handwriting trembling, desperate. You broke the pattern. Another line. The world above isn't reset anymore. And then, a third line, written in a shaky hand that most definitely wasn't Luke's. Things will start to move on their own now. Not back into place, but out of it. The apartment door unlocked. A breeze moved through the room. Objects shifted 1/2 inch. Not toward perfection, toward chaos. One final line appeared on the note in my hand. Not neat, not cold, not calculated, terrified. You didn't escape. You unbalanced everything. And now it's coming up. The crawl space door behind me rattled once, twice, then slowly unlocked.